but I don't even remember the name of the record that I mixed by them. But
That's crazy that you did that, by the way.
It's
a very odd pairing.
Yeah, well, hey, they wanted to do it.
Cool, yeah.
They hit me up, and I said, okay, cool. And they said Marco's gonna do the drums. Can you maybe give him a hand? So Marco and I spoke a couple times.
Okay.
And by give him a hand, I literally just gave him some guidance on how to record his drums in his. I think he has a garage or a basement.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, the kick drums were pads, and then he had just enough channels. I had to have him buy another Roland interface because he had a Roland interface he wanted to use. I had taught him how to daisy chain them together, and he had enough fucking channels to record the drum shells and I think 2 overheads or 4 overheads or something. I remember I'm like, you got to mic the splash, you got to mic the hat and the ride for me, otherwise it's fucked.
Yeah.
And nice guy, like very easy to communicate with. He sent me the drums. I guess there was some sort of miscommunication. I thought they sounded great. I'm like, fuck, this is ripping, whatever.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you whether he really played the kicks or not because it came in on a pad, but it sounded like they were pretty real for the most part. There's parts that seemed quantized.
Well, another thing that we should mention is playing the kicks on a pad is a huge advantage.
Majorly huge.
Yeah, from an editing engineering standpoint.
Yes.
Because if the kick is off and you're trying to fix it up, it's extremely hard to get it out of all the other mics.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. At these speeds, the kick is almost inconsequential.
Yeah, just play it on a pad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's you could almost say it's cheating, but it's not because it really that's a technique that I use to get the hands to sound more real.
Exactly.
Because I can let the drummer slam the fuck out of the hands, and we know that the kicks are going to be inconsequential because you can't play them hard enough for it to matter anyway.
Yeah.
So what I was saying about the Rings of Saturn is he sent me the drums, and I had the mix going, and I had it good and blah blah. And I remember talking to Lucas, who's quite a character, but he just was kind of dry about the notes. He said, "Oh, this mix sounds great, but when are you going to edit the drums?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "The drums are fine."
Yeah.
He's like, "No, they got to be gridded." I'm like, "Why?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Why? This sounds fine. This is 260 BPM. You can't even tell when it's I like let it sway." And he's like, "No, that's just our sound." I'm like, "Okay." And then it fucking like totally kind of train wrecked the whole thing because I didn't know I was being sent unedited drums. That's how tight Marco was.
Exactly.
That's how tight Marco was.
Yeah.
And it's not me even going to bat for him. It's like this guy can
just the facts.
It's just the facts.
Yeah, it's just the facts.
Yeah.
I didn't know he sent me unedited drums. And I knew that they weren't gridded, but it wasn't like this is unacceptable. I would have never mixed the record if I thought that the drums weren't tight enough.
Yeah.
So we had to go back and edit the drums, of course, and then it was fine. But we even gridded the vocals, which is something that was strange. Like when I recorded with Ian was like, "Yeah, we have to snap it because that's the way Lucas wants it," And at that point, like, if it's being snapped to the grid, there's no reason for me to be making decisions. I sent it to John Douglas. I said, "John,
just grid it. Fuck it.
Grid it because you're not paying me to make a decision anymore."
Yeah.
When I'm sitting there with you guys, or I'm sitting there with Undeath or Trivium or whatever, and they're like, "Is this good enough?" And I'm like, "It's more than good enough. It was the one, or whatever, or maybe, But if you're literally paying me to grid it, then there's no reason to even have a producer."
Totally. And I think that's something that people don't really realize. Like when you're planning on quantizing, gridding the whole thing, like you don't even have to really pay attention to takes that much.
Yeah.
Just
exactly.
like it's a take that's pretty good. Yeah. Whatever, it's going to be quantized anyway. Fuck it, move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's like it's a whole nother skill set to be like, okay, we're going to get this with the right feel, especially for drums.
Yeah.
Like, it is like, it's really hard to get a drum take that is good enough to not grid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's a hard fucking thing to do.
Dude, absolutely, man. Or just like when I did this Undeath record, like